There's no hiding it. The Miami Dolphins defense has been flat-out disappointing through the first month of the season. For weeks in, and this unit has looked nowhere near the level fans expected. Changes have to happen, and the good news is, it seems like adjustments are already on the way. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver addressed the media and dropped some eye-opening comments about certain players and the team's overall approach, especially against the run. Looking at the numbers, it's hard to ignore the truth. The Dolphins rank near the bottom of the league in nearly every defensive category. They're giving up too many points, too many yards, and their third down defense has been downright brutal. Opponents are converting over half their chances. That's simply unacceptable for a team with championship aspirations. Even more frustrating? This front seven, which was supposed to be the strength of the roster, has been average at best. The Dolphins sit 25th in pressure rate, and for a group that was built to dominate, that's a massive letdown. If they don't make changes, whether in personnel, scheme, or pure mentality, we'll just keep seeing the same results week after week. And before we dive deeper into Weaver's fiery comments, let me quickly say this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your friends. And of course, turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update. We've got plenty more Dolphins coverage coming your way, and you won't want to miss it. Now, back to Weaver. Before that Monday night matchup against the Jets, he went viral for a quote about toughness. He said, "At some point, it comes down to changing the math through violence. I need you to do more than your job. I need you to whip the guy in front of you." That raw intensity struck a chord with fans, and honestly, the defense did respond. Yes, it was against the Jets, a struggling offense on its own, but Miami's defense finally showed signs of life. They forced 3 takeaways after going the first 3 weeks without a single one. That's progress. But it's also proof this group needs to keep evolving if they want to turn things around. Now, let's talk about the biggest issue that keeps haunting this defense, the run game. And honestly, it's getting painful to watch. This Dolphins front, which was supposed to be the backbone of the defense, has been pushed around far too often. For weeks into the season, they rank near the bottom of the league in every major rushing category. They're 30th in rushing yards allowed per game, 29th in yards per carry, and 28th in expected points added per rush. Even worse, they're 31st in yards before contact per attempt, which means opposing running backs are picking up 2 to 3 free yards before even being touched. That's not just bad, that's embarrassing for a unit built to control the line of scrimmage. Now, here's the crazy part. When the Dolphins do make contact, they're actually not bad at bringing guys down. Missed tackles aren't the problem. The problem is they're getting bullied up front. Instead of collapsing pockets and blowing up plays, guys like Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, and the rest of that defensive front are getting stood up and moved backwards. That creates wide-open rushing lanes, and no NFL defense can survive when opponents are consistently gaining chunk yards before first contact. Anthony Weaver sees it too. He said it himself. Until Miami proves it can stop the run, every opponent is going to attack them on the ground. And he's right. Look at the Jets game. Justin Fields isn't exactly a reliable passer, but early on, New York leaned hard on the run, trying to exploit Miami's weakness. The only reason they couldn't keep doing it was because the Dolphins' offense built a quick 2-score lead and forced them to adjust. Still, this can't continue. You can't win consistently in the NFL if opposing running backs are guaranteed 2 or 3 yards every snap before they're even touched. That's not sustainable, and it's a glaring reason this defense hasn't lived up to expectations. Even worse, Miami's rookie first-round pick, Kenneth Grant, has been almost invisible so far. He was supposed to help solidify the middle, but instead, he's been a non-factor. And that has to change, fast. When Miami drafted Kenneth Grant, the expectation was clear. He was supposed to step in immediately as a solid rotational piece, someone who could bring impact snaps right away. Nobody necessarily expected him to start from day one, but the vision was to have Zach Sealer and Benito Jones handle the bulk of the defensive tackle duties while Grant worked in as the third guy, developing behind them. But because of injuries and depth issues, Grant has been thrust into more action than planned. And honestly, through the first month of the season, he hasn't lived up to the investment Miami made by taking him in the first round. It's early, yes, but right now, the numbers don't lie. His grades rank near the very bottom among all defensive linemen in the NFL. For a top 15 pick, that is frustrating. This isn't unprecedented, though. Remember last season when Miami's first-rounder Chop Robinson started slow? Through the first half of the year, he struggled to find his footing. But once he adjusted, he turned into one of the league's most disruptive edge rushers down the stretch. The difference is, Robinson was always seen as a raw prospect who needed time to develop. With Grant, the expectation was different. Scouts and coaches believed he could contribute early, and that's why the disappointment feels greater. Now, to be fair, even Anthony Weaver has acknowledged what's going on. He's pointed out that Grant's issues aren't about talent. The kid has all the physical tools you could want. The problem is technique and fundamentals. Until Grant cleans those up, he won't reach his full potential. And Weaver made it clear, nobody is harder on himself than Kenneth Grant. He's working, he wants it, and he's driven to improve. That's why we can't write him off after just 4 games. He has the work ethic and the mentality to grow into a difference maker. But at the same time, the reality is simple. As long as he continues to struggle, Miami's run defense will suffer. This team can't afford to keep giving up chunk yards every Sunday because one of their most important draft picks isn't holding his ground. The talent is there. Now it's about turning that potential into results. Now, here's the tough question. Is putting Kenneth Grant on the field this much actually hurting his development? When a young player keeps getting overpowered week after week, there's always the risk that it damages his confidence before he ever gets the chance to grow. It's a delicate balance, letting him learn through experience while also protecting him from being completely exposed. That's why I think Matthew Butler deserves a bigger role. Am I saying Miami should completely bench Kenneth Grant? Absolutely not. But right now, Grant has the second most snaps among defensive linemen, and it might be smart to scale that back a little. Give Butler more opportunities. When Butler has played, he's made the most of it. He saw his biggest workload against the Jets, and earlier this season against the Patriots, he actually graded out as Miami's best defender in that game. His snaps have been limited, but his impact has been noticeable, more consistent in the run game, more disruptive up front. The Dolphins don't need to take Grant off the field completely, but shifting even 5 to 10% of those snaps to Butler could stabilize this defense. Anthony Weaver seems to recognize this too. He's hinted that Miami may need to adjust its approach, not just in personnel, but in play calling. One option he mentioned is dialing up more run blitzes. We always think about blitzing as attacking the quarterback, but you can send extra pressure on run plays too. Flooding the box with 6 defenders and shooting gaps can blow up runs before they develop, forcing ball carriers to stop in the backfield instead of gaining those free yards. That's the kind of aggressive adjustment this defense might need. Because right now, standing pat is not an option. If Miami keeps letting teams dictate the pace on the ground, their defense will never reach the level this roster is capable of. Another change I'd like to see for this Dolphins defense is getting Chop Robinson more involved. Honestly, this isn't something I expected to be saying at this point in the season, but here we are. For whatever reason, he just hasn't been on the field nearly as much as he should be. In Week 1 against the Colts, he played 37 snaps. But since then, his workload has dropped off a cliff, just 24, 22, and 22 snaps over the last 3 games. Now, I know he tweaked his knee in Week 2 against New England, and that short turnaround heading into Week 3 against the Bills may have played a role. But here's what doesn't add up. After a week and a half of rest before facing the Jets, he was still only on the field for 22 snaps. That doesn't make sense for a player with his upside. And I'm not the only one who noticed. Reporters in Miami asked Anthony Weaver directly about Robinson's limited role. Weaver explained that part of it comes down to the new edge rusher and linebacker coaches still figuring out their rotations. Sure, that's understandable early in the year. But at the same time, this is your first-round pick, one of the most explosive pass rushers on the roster. leaving him on the sidelines. That much is simply unacceptable. If Miami wants to fix this defense and start creating more chaos up front, Robinson has to be part of the solution. His energy, speed, and raw talent are too valuable to keep bottled up. Looking at the snap counts for Miami's edge defenders, the imbalance jumps off the page. Jaylon Phillips has the most, and rightfully so. He's been the Dolphins' most complete edge player this year, both rushing the passer and holding strong against the run. He sits at 170 snaps. Behind him is Bradley Chubb at 165. Then there's Chop Robinson with just 105, and Matthew Judon with 86. And here's where I have a problem. How can anyone justify Robinson getting 60 fewer snaps than Chubb through 4 games? Now, I'm not saying Chubb doesn't deserve to be on the field. He's a proven veteran who's made plenty of plays in his career. But this should be a balanced rotation. Miami used a first-round pick on Robinson last year for a reason. He's too explosive, too disruptive, to be sitting on the bench this much. Ideally, you'd even out the workload. Let Chubb and Chop share more equal reps, while Phillips continues to lead the way as the anchor. Yes, Robinson has had some struggles setting the edge in the run game, and the knee tweak earlier in the season didn't help. But he's a dynamic pass rusher, and Miami hasn't unlocked that this year. The best way to change that? Get him on the field. The longer you limit him, the harder it is for him to find his rhythm. Before we wrap this up, I also want to point out one offensive adjustment. On Monday night against the Jets, Miami gave Cole Strange the start at right guard, and it looks like that move will continue in Week 5 against the Panthers. It's a small shift, but one that could quietly make a big difference for this offensive line moving forward. Offensive coordinator Frank Smith praised Cole Strange after his first start at right guard, and you can see why. Smith pointed out that Strange has the movement ability Miami wants in its run-blocking scheme, and on Monday night, he showed flashes of why the coaching staff believes he fits. Now, let's be clear, it wasn't perfect. Strange still lost plenty of reps in pass protection. But when you compare him to what Miami put on the field in Weeks 2 and 3, with Kean Smith and Daniel Brunskill struggling badly, Strange was a noticeable upgrade in the run game. He wasn't dominant, but he was solid enough to open lanes and give this offense more consistency. For a line that desperately needed stability, that matters. Of course, the long-term solution is already on the roster. James Daniels, the big free agent signing, is eligible to return from injured reserve in Week 6. Miami brought him in on a 3-year, $24 million deal to anchor this offensive line, and the plan is for him to be back when the Dolphins face the Chargers at home. That's the goal, and if Daniels can return healthy, it could completely change the outlook for this unit moving forward.